Welcome all to a video that I've been wanting to release for quite a while. We're taking a deep dive into the valley to uncover all its darkest secrets and theories. No one is safe. If you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe for more Easy Lily. Your support really keeps me going and allows me to make fun videos like this one. If you learned something new in this video, be sure to comment Krobus for a heart. Without further ado, let's dive right in. In Stardew Valley, you will pass out once the clock strikes 2 a.m. The farmers simply cannot keep their eyes open and falls to the ground right where they stand. The next morning, you wake up safe and sound in bed. A letter appears in the mailbox from your savior, but how did they know where to find you? It's not like any of the townspeople would casually check level 83 of the mines before going to sleep, right? I think this one comes back to our cute green forest spirits, the Junimos. As we know, completing all community center bundles in a room will reward the player with an improvement to the valley and a star towards the community center completion. After placing one of these stars, a Junimo will follow the farmer around until they leave the community center. This shows that the Junimos are aware of the farmer's presence and efforts to repair the valley. After all the stars have been placed, the community center is fully repaired and the Junimos return to the forest. Or do they? I believe the Junimos keep a watchful eye on the farmer during the night. It makes sense that they would want to protect the person who is restoring their connection to the valley and fighting the good fight against Joja. Once the farmer passes out, perhaps it is the fact that the Junimos who wake someone up in the night. The residents of the valley have been living here for quite a few years when we arrive, so they likely know to follow the Junimos and save the farmer from getting eaten in their sleep. Either that, or may Lewis put a tracker in our egg hunt hat. During Emily's fourth heart cutscene, we see her leaving her house on a sunny day. She stops to wave at some parrots flying by and refers to them as her friends. Just as Emily is about to continue her stroll, one of the parrots randomly flies too low and smacks itself against her window. Emily rushes over and cradles the poor injured bird, promising to take care of it. We see that Emily and the parrot have a deeper connection as she doesn't even name it out of respect. Afterwards, the parrot hangs out in Emily's room and it will even give you a little squawk when you interact with it. By the time you marry Emily, the parrot will have gotten so attached to her that it'll move into your farmhouse with her. So let's take a closer look at this bird. On Ginger Island, parrots are everywhere. It's safe to assume that Emily's parrot flew all the way from there at some point. On Ginger Island, we also meet Leo, who lost his parents at sea. Leo will only speak to you once you've befriended the parrots of the island by giving them golden walnuts to unlock various things in the area. Leo says that he considers the island's parrots his family. This leads me to conclude that Emily hangs out with the parrots when visiting Ginger Island. And further, we can assume that her parrot is actually a part of Leo's family. Maybe the parrot was tired from flying all the way from Ginger Island, or maybe it just swooped down because it recognized a familiar face. Either way, this is where the theory gets a little darker. I believe that Emily is actually keeping the bird prisoner without knowing. Emily has always wanted a friend to hang out with 24/7, so who better than a creature in need? By the time Emily gets married, the parrot is so domesticated that it can't even imagine a world outside of these four walls. Some have even speculated that she clipped its wings. We all know Evelyn as our beloved Stardew granny. She loves tending to her garden and baking. Our farmer is always happy to get a cookie or two from her because they restore a good amount of energy. That being said, I'm pretty sure they taste terrible. Why else would we constantly find them in the trash? My guess is that everyone is just too nice to tell Evelyn that her cookies are horrible. Oh well, one person's trash is another person's treasure. Okay, so we arrive on a farm with a town that is already established. But it might have been much different when our grandpa arrived. He might have landed to find a farm full of monsters or even a band of robbers and outlaws. I believe that Grandpa, Linus, the wizard, and Marlin worked together to turn Stardew Valley into the community it is today. Marlin looks like an old soldier, definitely someone with combat experience. And the wizard can command the mystical arts. It's difficult to say which came first, the wizard or the forest magic, but I can see them teaming up with the Junimos too. I can imagine our grandpa in a support role for such a campaign, where he would contribute by growing provisions and making tools. With Grandpa and these two warriors, the enemies of the valley met a very unfortunate fate, but we'll get to that in a second. For now, let's assume that these three built up the community center and began to create a haven away from the bustle of the city. It might be a bit of a stretch, but I do believe Linus is in a state of atonement. The fact that he chooses to live in a tent way up in the mountains away from everyone is the first hint. Then he shows a deep connection to nature. Lastly, we see Linus doesn't mind some occasional abuse, which does reveal that he sees it as more some sort of divine punishment for his previous misdeeds. But what past actions could have possibly turned him into the hermit we see today? There can only be one crime worthy of such a big sentence: being the CEO of Joja. As the leader of Joja, Linus must have stumbled upon Stardew Valley while looking for new areas to expand his empire and keep that blue money machine churning. With tons of natural resources nearby, Linus set up his first Joja Mart and chased the Junimos out of the community center. Then at some point, Linus realized the folly of his actions when he met up with our trio, or maybe the fresh mountain air whispered into his ear. Whatever the reason, Linus grew a conscience, realized the harm he was bringing to the valley, and started a path of atonement. I personally believe his first real turning point was setting up the first ever Spirits Eve festival with Grandpa, Marlin, and the wizard. Far to the side of the festival, we see Linus and the wizard share a private moment. If you use the out of bounds glitch or the jumping mod, you can see their unique dialogue. Nice show as always, old friend. We know our dear grandpa spent many years on his farm, and I'm very sure he was good friends with Linus, Marlin, and the wizard. I can easily picturing them going on adventures and fighting evil together. But who were they fighting? When you venture through the skull caverns, it's easy to imagine that the ghosts and skeletons hanging around all used to be miners that didn't make it out. But when taking a closer look, I notice a few distinctive plaques against the cavern walls. Some kind Redditors have translated them to reveal creepy messages. We are cursed. Too much iridium. The wizard sealed us in this prison until the day a hero puts us to rest. I believe these poor souls were the people who used to live in the valley before it was built. As mentioned earlier, I like to imagine these were bands of robbers or outlaws. I mean, the wizard would never bestow such a fate on innocent people, right? Right? There is a theory making the rounds that the valley is stuck in a time loop. It is speculated that this loop was created by none other than Joja, who have already taken over the entire world. Your children only to age to a certain point, and the so-called townspeople, who also never seem to age, are constantly saying the exact same things they said the year before. Does this mean the valley is actually a simulation? Perhaps our farmers' time in the valley is an elaborate virtual test by Joja to see where our loyalties lie. If this is the case, I definitely paused with flying colors. A pretty common theory goes that Abigail's purple hair and love for magical items comes from her true father, the wizard. This implies that Caroline and the wizard spent some quality time together. But the theory goes much deeper than I could have ever imagined. Caroline never mentions the wizard, which leads us to believe her memory was erased. I personally believe this was an act of revenge by the witch, as punishment for the wizard meddling with the mortals' lives. The clue for this would be the memory shrine in her home. Perhaps the wizard was actually able to convince her to show mercy and not turn his child into a pretty white dove. We end this off with one of my absolute favorite theories. Mr. Key is actually an alien. Okay, hear me out. New Key lore has dropped. If you received a 100% perfection score, you can enter the all-new summit area. Here you'll sit on a bench overlooking the town, while being greeted by all the supernatural entities of the valley like Krobus, the wizard, and some crop fairies. Perhaps the most particular visitors are Mr. Key and Grandpa, who jointly congratulate the farmer. By itself, this isn't enough to prove Mr. Key's otherworldly nature, but the plot thickens. If you're able to glitch yourself into the summit before reaching perfection, your view of the town will be replaced by this mysterious scene filled with glitching sprites. A cutscene will play with a very disgusted Mr. Key, who will suddenly rush at you, after which you'll wake up in Harvey's clinic. Spooky! Our favorite casino operator will also acknowledge the farmer reading secret note number 10 and reaching level 100 of the Skull Caverns. For getting that far, you'll get the super rare iridium snake milk, which permanently increases your health by 25. So we know that Mr. Key is somehow secretly keeping an eye on our progress and has a deep understanding of human biology. His walnut room on Ginger Island is also quite strange once you have a closer look. It contains various magical and mysterious devices far beyond the technology of the valley. Mr. Key even jokes to the farmer that he's always behind the curtain wherever you go to ensure the show is interesting. Some have speculated that Mr. Key is nothing more than a developer making sure their players are happy. But then why would the show have to be interesting? Perhaps the entire valley is monitored by Mr. Key, who broadcasts it to his own home world. There is definitely much more to this character than meets the eye. Are there any theories I missed? Let me know in the comments below. If you learned something new, be sure to comment Krobus for a heart. And as always, remember to like and subscribe for more Easy Lily. I will see you in the next video.